Before Zillow, before online listings, and before interest rates dipped below 10%, he was already selling real estate. Welcome to something a little different today. If you've been around my channel for a minute and dipped into my real estate content, you've probably heard me say, my broker, who also happens to be my dad, always says, well, today you're meeting him. This is my dad, Dennis Cobb. He's held his real estate license since 1975. He watched Rancho Santa Fe transform from acres of bean fields into the ultra-luxury community it is today. He remembers Newport Beach when it was still a gritty fishing town. He's lived and worked all over California and all over the world as an electrical engineer and systems engineering manager for over 40 years. He's held an electrician's license. He's been a HERS rater. He's the treasurer of the local Democratic Club, a bluegrass aficionado, banjo and mandolin player extraordinaire, and a Libra, which balances my Gemini duality nicely, which is fabulous in a business partnership. So when I talk about cycles, patterns, and long-term memory in real estate, this is where I learned it. In 2024, he left his really cool local brokerage to go into business with his youngest daughter. His one condition, that his title was to officially be the Arch Chancellor of Coven Real Estate, which, if you're a Terry Pratchett fan, you totally get. So here he is, the Arch Chancellor, broker, and head wizard of Coven Real Estate. Dad, welcome. I think the best place to start is how we ended up on this mountain, since we moved around quite a bit when I was growing up. Different cities and different chapters, which I've talked about that in other videos, so we won't get into that today. But this house was always the place that we came back to. This mountain has always felt like home. So, Dad, how did we get here?
Okay, well, we moved into my parents' house in Santa Ana when my dad was dealing with my mother's Alzheimer's, not well, so we moved in to help him deal with her.
And this was I was 9.
Yeah, so whenever
that was.
So anyway, we found that while I got to go to work all day, my wife had to be stuck with my mother all day, so we needed a weekend place to get her away so she could recharge. She needed a little bit of recharging. So we started thinking, well, we'll get a beach place because that's where we lived for years. We lived in Newport Beach for a lot of years. And then we went back and we said, no, we don't like it anymore. It's not for us, and we're not for it. So my wife at that time said, you know, I've always liked mountains and forests. I said, well, okay. She and I went out touring, and we first went to Big Bear, and we went, no. And then we were coming back down from Big Bear one day, and we saw the turnoff to Lake Arrowhead. And my wife said, well, I've never been there. Let's take a look at that. So we turned down. It's called 2 Mile. It's the street from the Highway 18 down into the village. We got about 100 yards down there, and my wife next to me on the seat is jumping up and down going, this is it, this is it, this is it. So then we spent the next couple of years looking for the right place. It was during a period of a lot of foreclosures. So
this is the mid-90s, or early to mid-90s. Yeah.
So Chris's job was to sit in the back seat with the Thomas guide.
I'm really good at reading maps now.
And be the map person. So we would get the address for the next one, and she would tell us how to get there. So it was her job in the back seat. So we went and we must have looked at 50 or 60 different no's before we never did stumble onto one. One of the weekend days I was up here by myself, and I stumbled across this house. It wasn't listed as the foreclosures, and it was not advertised anywhere. I just happened by, and there was a guy there, a contractor there working on something, doing some repair work, and he said, oh yeah, it's a VA foreclosure, so sooner or later it'll show up on the VA listing. So I said, okay. He let me in the house. I looked out and I thought, okay, I like this. It has some cool features.
It was a lot of wood paneling.
It was a lot of wood paneling. It was actually,
not anymore.
We always joked that it was built over a weekend by 2 guys and 3 cases of beer, but yeah. It was fairly rough, but it had a great layout. One of the things we loved about it was it had a back staircase and a front staircase, which is really cool because everybody that comes into the house gets immediately turned around and lost. So that's kind of cool.
Well, and we needed a separate staircase for the servants, right?
The back. The servants, yeah. Yeah, servant. That would be you.
Oh, no, you're the butler, according to Mom.
Well, anyway, I went through and I liked it. So I started watching the newspaper because the Veterans Administration publishes the house when they have a foreclosure, they publish it for 3 weeks. And then you can bid on it, and then whoever has the highest bid gets it. So what I did was I watched the paper, and finally it showed up, and it was in December. So the first weekend that it showed up happened to be Christmas, was on that Saturday. So I'm guessing nobody came to see it. The next weekend, of course, was New Year's. And so again, a holiday, nobody showed up. And the last weekend, there was a blizzard.
Perfect.
So I'm thinking nobody but us ever saw this house. So I had one of Kristen's friend's father at the time was a real estate broker. I had let my license expire at the time, so I was in between. So we asked him to put in the bid for us, which he
Rick?
did.
Who was that?
No, that was Bonnie's father. I don't remember his name.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so he put the bid in for us, and we bid the CRV, or the Certificate of Reasonable Value that the VA says, was $143,000. Peanuts today, but a lot then.
It was 96.
Yeah, but we bid it at 130, thinking, maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. Well, we did. So the first thing we did when we got the house was start remodeling. And we came up here on weekends, and I brought drywall, and I took they had that 1/4-inch paneling that looks like wood because it's a photograph of wood. It was to the whole thing. So we tore all that out and put drywall in. Anyway, on and on and on we did.
My dad has been almost single-handedly. He had Bob Star for a while. Remodeled this place.
You.
And me, yes.
She was my demo queen.
Yes.
He loves hitting things with a sledgehammer.
Well, and the concrete. I was daddy's little hoer. Get it?
She's a mixture of concrete.
Hoeing the concrete.
Yeah. But anyway, so when we did the downstairs bathroom, she was the one with the sledgehammer knocking out.
Well, it's
all the
about
walls.
time to redo it, isn't it?
It is time to redo it. It's on my list. So anyway, so that's how we ended up here, and it became a weekend place. Okay, well then after we bought this place,
well, you got a job up in San Jose.
I was working in Orange, and then I got a job in San Jose.
Yeah, and then Mom didn't like it up there. Remember, we went up there for a month.
We went up there
and stayed up there, and then my mom decided she didn't like it.
Yeah.
So Mom and I lived here.
Yeah.
While Dad lived
I
in San
commuted
Jose.
back and forth between San Jose.
So
and
I went to Mary Putman Hank
Which
Middle School.
Which is a long commute, by the way.
Oh, from San Jose,
San Jose
yeah.
to here.
He came home about every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Or something. It was a tough time.
It was. And then my next job was in San Diego. So I got a job with Scheimer in San Diego, and that was a closer one. I could come home every weekend. So that was much better. That was only about like 100 miles.
Well, we ended up moving down there anyway.
We
too,
did.
Didn't we?
We moved to...
Well, we went from here to... No, because we went from here to San Luis.
Yeah.
Then to San Diego.
That's right. San Luis and then San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we always held on this. The plan was to retire here, and well, that's not quite retired since he's a business owner and all.
Well, I retired from the engineering, from the technical bit.
Right.
Anyway, it's hard to remember all those different jobs. I worked in the semiconductor equipment business, which is very transient.
Yes.
The businesses of the companies I work for, I think there's only one left. The rest of them are just gone. So anyway.
They don't make semiconductors anymore?
No, but the companies come and go. So there's new companies come up and other companies go down.
Right.
So the companies I work for the most part, aren't there anymore. So that was how we got up here. And then once we got up here, when I got laid off my last job, which was in Pacoima, and I decided, well, actually my wife encouraged me to get my real estate license again, which it turned out was pretty easy because I had it for so many years, and they gave me the same number back, so I have an ancient license number, and I started back and I went to work for Bill Johnson, who actually owns the
Sky Park
in
we love
Sandus
Sky
Village
Park.
up here.
So
I went to work for him for a while, but I did a look at my history, and I looked back over like 4 years of sitting in the office. I could not point to a single sale that was a result of sitting in that office. So I thought, that doesn't seem like a good plan. So then Chris was saying she was a real estate witch, so she needed a coven, because, a witch needs a coven, can't be all alone. So I went ahead and got the name. I applied for it with the Department of Real Estate, and I got the coven name. So then I went out on my own with Coven, and Chris linked herself with me. So that's how we ended up to where we are today.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Lake Arrowhead as a whole and maybe some of the changes that you've seen over the years. We have seen a lot of businesses come and go. The village has had a lot of changes.
Yeah, restaurants don't seem to last up here for some reason. One of the secrets we found to a restaurant lasting is to serve good food. Because if they don't serve good food, they don't tend to last. And we've seen that over and over and over and over up here.
Or they do serve good food and then they retire or sell the business
retire and sell it to somebody.
We missed the cottage.
Yeah, well, yeah, and she had a stroke, so that went to hell. Anyway, that's kind of what happens to restaurants up here. Also, there was a lot more vacant land when we first moved up here than there is now, because they've been just not crazily, but every year more and more houses are being built. So there's fewer and fewer empty lots up here. So trying to think of what else.
By no means overcrowded like a city.
It isn't yet.
But yeah, they're like where we used to walk to the lake. You know, you have to walk in somebody's backyard now. We didn't used to have to do that.
Yeah, it used to be pretty much wide open. There was a big lot there all the way down. So anyway, that actually goes back to how Orange County was when I was a kid. It was just empty space now, and a lot of Lake Arrowhead was empty space when we moved up here. And when Chris first came up here, and she was up here with her mom and I was commuting, it was her first time that she was turned loose. But she was out on her bicycle with her friends, getting in trouble all over the mountain. So before that in Burbank, I think we lived in Burbank right before that, or maybe it was San Diego.
Well, it was Burbank to Orange County to San Jose for a minute to here to San Luis Obispo to Ramona. Yeah. And then I went off to Arizona.
Yeah, by then you were older and on your own. But you were in junior high, and so you and your two friends.
They live right down the street.
They used to run amok and get yelled at by the neighbors. So that was her life at the time.
Climbing up neighbors' retaining walls and mooning the lake queen and breaking into people's docks and hanging out. Yeah. Hey, man, it was the 90s.
Things I didn't know at the time.
We didn't do anything too dangerous.
Yes. So anyway, that was Lake Arrowhead for us. And again, a lot of the time we lived up here, of course, I wasn't here. I was home on weekends, and all of my weekends involved construction work on the house. I did a lot of it. The house originally had a little galley kitchen that was just inadequate, which I heard about every weekend. And so finally we added a room. We added some distance to the one side of the house and built a new kitchen in there. So now my wife has a nice large kitchen, which works for her, although it's not enough storage yet. I don't know how that could be, but apparently
I was gonna say it's like 12 times the amount of storage in my house, in my tiny house.
But anyway, we have a kitchen, and the master bedroom was redone. I moved the wall out.
Well, you've redone everything. You had to jack up the dining room.
I did. The house was actually originally the dining room was set on the deck. They just built it out on the deck, so it was at a pretty severe angle with the rest of the house. So I jacked it up to make it level, and
all your peas would roll off your plate.
I actually hired a contractor to do that for me, but he got about halfway done with the job and then disappeared. So I learned my lesson about mountain contractors here.
Yeah, you got to be careful up here.
They don't show up, or if they do show up, they don't continue to show up. But anyway, that's just who they are. It's mountain.
Not all of them, just the ones that we've
just the cheap ones that I wanted, the low price ones.
Oh, you get what you pay for, Dad.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know what else to tell you about. I will tell you that I have threatened several years to buy a snowblower, because every time it snows and I have to shovel the snow, I get to swear and shovel snow. But then it goes away, melts and goes away, and then I forget all about it until the next year. So I've never bought a snowblower, even though I've threatened to several times. But I have a snow shovel, and that seems to work.
Is there anything about Lake Arrowhead that hasn't changed at all? Like, is there anything that stayed steady through it all?
Still snows in the winter.
No shit. It snows here? I had no, that's not I thought that's not just cotton or snow?
Asbestos. So there's not been a great deal of change, other than the fact that every single restaurant that we used to go to isn't there anymore. And there's all new restaurants, some of which we like.
Well, except for Papagayos. That's a staple.
It's changed owners a couple of times.
True.
Once.
And it moved.
It moved from Agua Fria to
The village.
the village.
Yeah.
There was originally in the village where it is now, there was an Italian restaurant that was really good. And for some
I
reason,
forgot about
the
that
two
place.
owners, partners, couldn't get along, so that ended up going away. Well, that seems like a bad idea, but it is what happened.
So speaking of restaurants, so there's a couple of good ones at this point that we frequent, but is there any that you would recommend people staying away from? The taco truck, the mom got food poisoning in Blue Jay.
No, that's not the truck. That was the taco place in Blue Jay that's in the part of the Jensen's parking lot.
Yeah, don't go there.
There is a taco truck across the street in the gas station parking lot. We went there, but we weren't thrilled. I think the issue with it is it's too authentic. If Mexican food is too authentic, we're gringos. We don't care for it, which is why we like Papagayos, because it's not an authentic Mexican restaurant. It's sort of a gringo Mexican restaurant.
That makes sense.
And it's about it. They just opened a Hawaiian restaurant and bar in the village. They opened a barbecue, Texas barbecue place, which we tried once, and that was that.
Not a big fan of the dry rub.
The dry rub barbecue, not our thing.
But if it's your thing,
There is the pizza place in Sky Forest is pretty good. It's pretty well known. And the very best pizza we ever had there was when somebody delivered to us somebody else's pizza.
I forgot about that.
Not the one we ordered.
And they still don't know what it
We
was,
still
so
don't
they
know what
can't
was.
order it.
Yeah. But it was the best pizza we've ever had. So, anyway.
And the old malt shop, that place is good in Cedar Glen.
It's still the inn has actually changed owners a couple of times, but I don't think it's changed dramatically.
Well, it's, you know, burgers and french fries and malts. I don't know what you can change too much about those.
No. No, and it's there, but it's sort of buried back in Cedar Glen. So it's kind of a local spot mainly because it's hard to find. So it doesn't seem to get a lot of tourist traffic up here.
Well, let's talk about real estate a little bit up here and how
Okay.
it's different than the beach, you know, than your days back in Newport Beach, selling real estate with, what was his name, your broker, Bill something or other?
Bob Bruckman was my
There he
first
is.
broker, and then I went to work for the Davidsons.
And that was down in Newport, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's mountain real estate different from beach real estate? And houses, really, because what the heck is that called? The
What?
whatever you did with Barry.
Oh, he does water intrusion.
Yeah, well,
Thanks.
remember you were saying, because there's like, you'd go into new houses and they would be a mess.
Yeah, because the people who were installing windows weren't doing a good job was mainly the problem. Barry had originally worked for a window company and then went off on his own. And what I did, he's Persian, so I wrote his reports for him because they looked better if a native English speaker wrote his reports.
Also, because he didn't have ChatGPT yet.
That's true too. That's true too. Anyway, I did that for a while, but just kind of, it was a part-time thing. But when I was working with Bill in his office, we got a lot of traffic of people. Okay, Newport Beach was all duplexes, so it was income property, and so I was doing a lot of ROI to sell income property to people. And the other thing too was that at that time, in the late 70s, property was going up so fast that you could buy a duplex on the peninsula, and by the time you closed escrow, you could sell it and make money on it.
Nice.
That's probably not true anymore, but it's also...
Well, through COVID was
probably
pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, but I don't know that it's ever been true up here. We have markets. We have the winter where nothing happens, and then we have the spring and summer where you cram in all the activity. We get a lot of people up here looking at property. A lot of people come up here and they don't know things like the fact that the lake is private. The lake is private because in the 70s, the dam was starting to fail, so the state said, tough noogies, you won't have a lake once this dam is gone. So the local people that in this one tract called that we live in, the Arrowhead Woods tract, all got together and decided they would pay to build another dam to take a load off of the main dam, which is what they did, so the lake didn't disappear. So that was good. So by doing that, the people that live in this tract became the owners of the lake. And so now it's private. It's not like Big Bear where just any wazoo in his inner tube can get in the lake, or actually living on the Newport Beach Bayfront was the same way. It was anybody with a rowboat could be in your backyard.
Or steal your barbecue off your deck with
There is that.
hot dogs
Yeah.
cooking on it.
There is that.
weekend.
Anyway, yeah, we did lose steaks.
Oh, steaks, not hot dogs.
Yeah.
Wow, that makes it worse.
Well, anyway, yeah, so now the lake is privately owned, which means that if you buy property in it, there's a number of outlying areas that are within the Lake Arrowhead general area, like Twin Peaks, for example, or Grim Forest, which, because it's always foggy, I refer to it as Grim Forest. But anyway, those areas are all more or less Lake Arrowhead, but you don't have lake rights. And lake rights means you can pay your money and join the Arrowhead Lake Association. Doesn't mean you can use the lake or even walk on the path around the lake unless you belong to the Arrowhead Lake Association, which means two things. One of them is that you can buy property up here and never get a chance to see or use the lake. And the other one is that our lake is much better kept up than Big Bear, for example. It's cleaner, nicer, and all the way around the lake is just much nicer. And that's one
And not
advantage.
as crowded, except for 4th of July.
Well, 4th of July is crazy. Crazy. Actually, 4th of July is the only time I buy an ALA membership, only so we can get in next to the lake and watch the fireworks. Other than that, I have no reason to go to the lake.
When we come up, we go down there. And
Okay. Well, I don't own a boat. I don't fish. We used to walk the dog around the path on the lake, but we no longer have the dog, so we don't do that anymore. So anyway, so that's one of the advantages of Lake Arrowhead is we have a nice private clean lake. And again, if you come here in the summer, other than on 4th of July, 4th of July weekend, every single boat owner is out on the lake. So that's not a good example. But
it's cool if you can like walk from your house to the lake
Yeah.
and you don't have to drive or park or
yeah.
it's not too bad, but it's pretty crowded.
Yeah, the rest of the year, though, the rest of the summer, the lake is pretty open. I mean, you see a couple of water skiers out there or fishermen, but the lake isn't jam-packed like it would be if it was Big Bear.
Yeah. It's
So-
smaller too, though,
It is.
also. But,
It is
you know,
smaller, but fewer
so
people.
what?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Cedar Glen is adjacent,
Yeah.
Blue Jay's adjacent,
Cedar Glen is pretty close to Lake Arrowhead, but not in the
woods.
woods, the Lake Arrowhead Woods
Yeah.
tract. So you cannot purchase membership and belong to the lake. That's something I've had to explain to people, sometimes more than once.
Yeah, so
They're looking up here and they go,
if you're not going to buy in Lake Arrowhead Woods and you still want to use the lake, then I suggest you make friends with someone who
Well,
lives here.
well, the other alternative is you can buy a vacant lot
Oh, there you
in the
go.
woods, and then that gives you lake privileges.
That's a good idea.
Some people do that,
Okay,
although there's fewer and fewer of those
that's true.
as time goes by.
So as far as like day-to-day life in the mountains versus down the hill,
Mhm.
is there anything that you've really had to acclimate to that you've noticed, like besides, the air is drier or whatever, but is there anything that's significantly different than living in the suburbs, besides the snow?
Well, something that people don't ever bring up is we don't get door-to-door mail service.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You have to have a P.O. box.
Uh-huh.
And you have to drive to the village or wherever or one of the local post offices
That's right.
to pick up your mail. And I understand we have about more than a third or half to a third of the houses up here are vacation rentals
Right.
or vacation homes, which means that, the junk mail that you get every day in your post office, well, imagine that 6 months worth of
Oh.
that. So they don't deliver mail to your house here. You have to go get it from the post office. So that's only a nuisance when it's snowing.
Right. Or really foggy.
Well, it's not.
Oh, the fog's not too bad once you
It's
drop off the
it's never
side
that foggy here.
Right,
It's
right.
foggy up in Grim
on the rim. Yeah.
Forest.
It's scary sometimes driving up and down
Yes,
through the fog.
but it is here in the valley where the lake is. It's very rarely foggy here. It can be, but it's not very
Not
common.
too bad.
The thing that's interesting with Grim Forest is you can watch the air blowing up from below.
It
The
is pretty cool.
moist air blowing up from the valley below, and when it hits the cold air up here, it immediately turns to fog. So you watch this air come up and bam, it turns to fog. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, not for driving.
Right. But spectating.
That was when we moved up here, it was raining like a son of a gun. Then we
Oh,
went
yeah.
back down the hill.
Oh, and Dad, we had the cheapest rental truck you could find. So like one of the headlights didn't work and the other one was real dim.
And we had to take our shirts off to wipe the
wipe the inside, and Dad had to open the door and he was driving by the
white line.
Oh my God, it was terrifying.
It was not a good time. But when I told the rental people where we took in the truck, they said if we'd known that, we would not have rented you the truck. So probably good I never mentioned it. Anyhow, but that day was the hardest I've ever seen it rain up here. It rained so hard. When we were unloading the truck in the driveway, the water was running down inside the truck, and it was unbelievable how hard it was raining. It's rained hard since then, but not like that day.
That was a sign.
It was
or
impressive.
Something.
Well, we do get weather. I mean, it's like snow and wind. We get wind up here.
Mm-hmm.
All things that.
I hope if you like wind chimes, you should have a few.
Yeah, wind chimes, it sounds like a gong sometimes. Somebody's hitting it with a hammer.
They're
anyway,
smacking the side of the house.
Yeah.
Well, okay, get wind chimes and a bungee cord so you can bungee them together when necessary.
Yeah, we also, if there's a nice kind of a breeze most of the time during the summer, for example, and so the wind chimes give you a little bit of noise.
Oh, that is one thing about living here in the summer is that the nights are never hot. Don't get hot nights.
You know, those nights, I remember in Burbank,
wonderful.
You had to lie there with kick off the covers and lie there sweating.
And Vista,
it doesn't happen. The temperature drops when the sun goes down. The temperature goes down.
Yeah, the thinner air, the water molecules, it doesn't hold the heat.
It doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold.
Wonderful in the summer at night for sure. This is a great respite from temperatures down there.
And we're over here on the warm side of the mountain, what's referred to as a banana belt. And in the summer, it can get warm. We've had 100-degree weathers for like 4 days in a row, which is not a big deal here. That would be considered a good deal in Burbank, 4 days in a row, whoopee. But, because you have 37 days in a row of 100-degree weather there. But here, we get like 4 days in a row of 100 degrees, and then it cools back down in the 90s and then the 80s. The summers are pretty pleasant.
Yeah.
And if you belong to the lake, it doesn't matter.
That's true. And there's lots of trees, so there's plenty of shade.
There's a lot of trees, a lot of shade. True.
Isn't there something grounding about hearing how a place becomes home over time? Real estate isn't just about transactions. It's chapters, it's decisions, it's anchors. And not everyone gets to sit next to their broker and ask questions like these. I don't take that lightly. I'm grateful to get to build on decades of perspective like this and bring it into the work I do every day. If you're curious about Lake Arrowhead, I have a guide linked below in the description that'll walk you through what living up here is actually like. And if you're thinking about buying or selling, you can book a consult with me through the link in the description below. We'll talk through your situation, your timing, and whether this mountain makes sense for you. And Arch Chancellor, thank you so much for joining me today and doing this.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Well, and thank you for spending some time with us. We'll see you in the next one.